Welcome to the Locker Room to Boardroom podcast. My name is Ryan Blake. I'm the founder and director of Ryan Blake Performance Coaching, as well as the host of this show. The mission of this is to empower high-performing sports industry executives and directors to elevate their leadership through enhanced mindset, well-being and lifestyle solutions, helping minimise stress and maximise fulfilment to reach peak performance by leveraging the insights, experiences and strategies of real-world professionals. The vision of this is to become a go-to resource for sports industry leaders, providing actionable strategies to overcome challenges and solve problems without sacrificing personal priorities. Aiming to cultivate a community of sports executives and directors who can effectively bridge the gap between sports and business leadership, ultimately living better to lead better. In this episode, I'm speaking with John Black. John is a National Tennis Academy head coach and high-performance tennis consultant. We discuss what leadership means to him, the best example of leadership he's come across, what he considers the cost of bad leadership to be, what parts does he consider mindset, well-being and lifestyle to play in leadership and why, what is his key piece of takeaway advice to make someone a better leader in the sports industry, as well as much more. Right, let's get started. John, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Please, could you just give the listeners a brief introduction to your professional experience and your background?
I've been involved in high performance now for over 35 years. I've run various programs and centres throughout the UK, so worked in different areas of the country. I'm a former National Academy coach and also national coach for Hong Kong, and I've worked with young players, taking them through to tour level, so sort of Wimbledon, etc. And I'm currently head of the largest sort of facility in the UK as well. So my job is to sort of enhance that program with the tennis manager, etc. So yeah, that's mainly my background.
Brilliant. So with all of your experience in the world of tennis and everything that you've done, everywhere you've been, what does leadership mean to you?
I think the main thing is to offer a support system for either the player or the team of coaches that you'd be working with, for them to grow naturally, and understand their strengths and weaknesses, and then where I can add value, or leadership can add value to help them develop further. I think that's really key. Everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses. It's giving them the tools to enhance in those areas and give them the confidence to continue to progress.
Do you think leadership for players and leadership for coaches is the same, or does that differ?
I think it's fairly similar. I mean, my approach with players would be more on simplifying their approach. I think what happens with for me, a lot of coaching is it can get over technical, and then players lose sight of what they need to be doing. So I used to have a phrase: you need to know more about less, because then they become super strengths. And especially in high speed sort of world of tennis, the decision making's very quick and very instantaneous. So it's an automatic response. So you have to simplify things in a way. Whereas with coaching, it's giving them a better background where they can read the room better. They have an understanding of what's going on around them, and they're adapting accordingly, adapting the field for the training session, or that sort of thing. So that's for me, it's more about them understanding understanding how to get the best out of that particular session on that particular day, and that's actually not an easy thing. I don't think. I think that's where a lot of coaches need a lot of help. So when I come across coaches that read the room really well, there tends to be of excellent delivery on what's needed on that particular occasion.
Yeah, sure thing. So, what's the best example of leadership or best examples of leadership that you've come across that spring to mind and stick with you?
I think the main thing is to have a blend of different characters within the teams,
Mm.
um, and they'll all bring something a little bit different, which enables everybody to think outside the box a lot more, and also have um, characters fitting in a certain area of the business where they will specialize in certain things, and everybody needing to understand each other's worth. So what they will bring. So for instance, if I have a team where we're working from six to 9 years, 9 to 12 years, 12 to 15 years, 15 years to 18 years, and seniors, I would want a blend of characters that obviously fit in those particular fields. And you wouldn't want a heavy, high performance senior coach working with 6-year-olds. So it's making sure that you've got the right blend of characters working in the right areas. But as I say, that for me has been some. I've seen that in other programs around the world, and you can see why that particular person fits that particular role, and that takes time either to train somebody like that, or if you feel fortunate enough to cross somebody like that in your path or in that particular area. If I was working in London or if I was somewhere else, then that's a real bonus. But it's not an easy fit sometimes, but it's something that we have to try and work at to try and collect those type of people to become a team. So that for me is really key.
Yeah, sure thing. So, just kind of to flip that on its head a little bit, what would you say the cost of bad leadership is?
I can remember being asked to run a particular centre um, that was in a bad state,
Mhm.
and everybody had their own agenda. Nobody communicated. The centre's reputation was poor at best. The outputs were poor in terms of um, whether it be participation or
Mhm.
whether it be high performance, as in so the other sort of strategy within a system,
Yeah.
and that took 3 months to basically be in there every day to break its back and to eliminate that culture. Um, it meant a reality of getting rid of a couple of people because it gave them the opportunity to say, look, this is where the program needs to go, and there was resistance constantly, which was the main reason why the place was probably in a poor position in the first place.
Yeah, sure.
But wanted to give them the opportunity to be part of it. So I think that around poor leadership, basically people having their own agenda, we're not all on the same path, and in the end you're actually pulling against each other. So that was very clear to me. I was shocked actually, how the impact it was having on the centre, even financially as well,
Mhm.
on the business.
Yeah,
So
sure.
yeah,
So, as you know, and we've already discussed, like the three key kind of pillars that I focus on
yeah,
to help people become better leaders are mindset,
yeah.
well-being, and lifestyle. So, just wanted to ask you about each of those separately. So, what role do you consider mindset to play in leadership, and why?
I personally have two systems that I work to, and one is an ADAR system, which basically initially starts with, this is mainly for players, but also for staff members, which is attitude, information, decision, actions, review, and review links back to attitude. So, for instance, if the athlete's attitude is negative and poor,
Mhm.
they don't pick up the information, whether it be in the training session or in a match, because they're too busy beating themselves up. They make poor decisions. It obviously affects their actions, and their review continues to be negative about the situation or how they're feeling or how they're playing.
Mhm.
So that cycle can also work the opposite way. That if the attitude is positive and clear, because we've obviously set the performer goals pre-match, they're picking up information earlier. They're making better decisions that relate to that particular shot or situation or score. Their actions, their techniques, and so on look more fluent and sort of are acting in the right way. And their review is often one of positive feedback, even directly after a point. So again, it affects their attitude towards the next point, the next game, the next set, etc., etc. And then for the journey, I have sort of drivers that starts initially with ambition. So if the athlete or the coach, if their ambition is high, their determination often is high, their effort level high, level itself high, outcomes and outputs high, and their journey is a very progressive, strong journey. And so you can see that you're, moving your way up the rankings, or if you're a coach, producing more and more good players. Whereas it can work the other way. Obviously, if somebody's ambition is low, their effort low, etc. So a lot of conversations I have to have with coaches or players is that their ambitions are high, but actually they're not suiting their effort often. So it's making sure they've got that blend of high ambition, high effort, and then we're always on the right track. So it's aligning people's expectations, should I say, of what it takes to be a top sort of performer. And I think that's really key. That if somebody's got high ambition, that's okay if it's realistic and it's and I agree with it. It's important to have high ambition, and it is a main driver, but it has to be aligned with expectations as well.
Yeah, sure. I love that, and I can see how that can apply to so many things, not
Yeah,
necessarily just the world of tennis, but loads of other sports, but loads of other applications and leadership as well. Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. So just moving on to well-being,
yeah.
and you come at this from whatever angle you want as a coach, as a player. What role do you consider that to play in leadership, and why?
I think it's obviously it's key because we've got to have the opportunity to be at ease with ourselves.
Mhm.
If we've got that sort of nice, calm, sort of logical approach to life, and that then really does help players and coaches with their ambitions. I think
Yeah,
because there's logic. We're not making rational, emotional sort of decisions. They're logical decisions coming because we're calm. I think that's really important. I know my current team, they lean on me with a lot of things in terms of because they're young, ambitious coaches, and they find that a really useful approach. So I think that my actual well-being is I wouldn't say I'm semi-retired, but I'm nearly at that point where I'm much more willing to really help others as well now because I'm just in that sort of where I'm not chasing around all the time. It's very
Mhm.
difficult because you almost, it's like the duck analogy. There's calm above, but there's a lot of swimming underneath. so
Yeah,
so what
yeah,
I've tried to do is just generally make sure that from a lifestyle point of view and a well-being point of view, there's a nice calm around myself generally, and I found that that's quite impactful on others as well
yeah,
now.
sure. So, we've already kind of alluded to this, but with the lifestyle of people, coaches, players that you've worked with, and obviously there's a lot of traveling with
Yeah,
tennis.
yeah.
Like, what role do you consider that to play in the equation, and maybe why is that?
Tennis is very unusual. Obviously, we can be in a different country each week.
Hmm.
We could be eating different foods each week. We could be from jet lag to a lot of different factors. But I think you find a common ground everywhere you try and go. So set routines, create sort of calm and stability, because so I think the lifestyle side of things, of having a similar routine all the time, settles players down, enables them to feel a little bit more at home. I've encourage things like, if players have trained hard or if they've competed hard in a match, to not overload the content or the discussions too much with them. So, for instance, what we would do is that they would play a tough match. There would be no big debrief for me post match. It would be, let's make sure they get some food straight away, shower, a good stretch at some point, and then I would encourage them actually to sleep, and just have that sort of a mental sort of where they can just relax, and then again later that evening we would probably go for we would go for dinner. There'd still be no real debrief about the match, because I want them to get over that match, and I would never discuss the following day the match. I would always let them have time to be a person rather than a performer athlete. And then the next day we could have a look at, potentially in the morning before we start our first practice, what we would take from yesterday, the goals and the strategy against our opponent today. So they're coming into that with a very fresh, clear mind of what needs to happen that day. Whereas I've seen quite often big debriefs post match, the players, even if they've lost, I feel it's better to do it the next day, so that there's a level of sort of logic and they've had time to reflect. So even debriefs, good or bad, I think it's important to not jump in on there straight away, especially with pro athletes. That's been my approach, and it's the players have found that really useful. So I think that's quite key. From when you talk about how to manage things and the lifestyle, and what it is to try and find a routine, be that calm approach, so that you're giving people time to sort of get over things emotionally, and then they can come from a logical sort of questioning, rather than an emotional, where you're asking questions and they're coming from an emotional standpoint, because they're still pretty aroused about what's just happened, good or bad.
Yeah, sure. I would imagine that players are, again, probably more open to kind of honest or negative feedback once they've had that time to kind of relax and refresh their mind a bit. I guess if you went straight away, it's a lot to take, isn't it? So it might not be as effective or as efficient as you'd want it to be.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the key factors, and I've actually done conferences on this, is the ability to really try, and if they've sustained that level of effort and focus throughout the duration of the match, then the fixes are actually relatively easy. They're very small fixes, because they've not lost their own battle with themselves. And what I've found is that when they've had that ability to really perform and try as hard as they possibly can, then as I say, the feedback is very simple, very easy. Whereas if we start to, if we start to get over involved in too much technical information too quickly, in a lot of ways, it can actually give the person a little bit of a bailout of the situation. The fact that there was a technical reason why they didn't perform, when the reality is that they just didn't perform, and we need to focus on that a little bit more, and not sort of scoot around the real problem. And it's not an attack on anybody's personality. It's just the fact that as performers, whether we're coaches or players, it starts with the trying element, and the biggest weapon of all is actually somebody's mental fight and their ability to try, and then the technical stuff around it that's where I think that's relatively easy for most coaches. Really,
Sure thing.
it's just how you manage that. It's how you manage their sort of perspective of things.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And again, I can see how this applies to so many other areas,
Yeah.
not just in the world of sport. It reminds me of a conversation I had recently the other day with an exec of a big sports tech industry, and he said the thing that he spends quite a lot of his time saying to people is this your best work?
Mm.
And there usually is a long silence after that. For whatever reason, it's sometimes usually not. So he says, "Wait, that's fine. Just come back to me when it is." And he
Yeah.
says it's funny how so many problems and challenges disappear once
Yes.
once that's established. So
Yeah.
I can see how it's fairly similar concepts here.
Yeah.
Um, so just the last question, John, before I let you go, what would you say, based on everything we've just discussed, what's your kind of key piece of advice to make someone a better leader in the sports industry, whether they're an exec, whether they're a director or a coach?
When other people are achieving their sort of goals and ambitions, um, that has to be a reflection back to the leader themselves of they're a product of that leadership.
Mhm.
And the people that I found, especially obviously from a playing point of view, it's easy because they've achieved certain things, and the reputation from that comes back to you as a coach. But what I've found with a lot of coaches that I've helped, the value that you added to them as a sort of, whether it be a performance coach or a coach who's working in a particular field, they're spreading that love to a bigger audience, and so actually, in a way, the business itself has grown through the reputation of those people, and their appreciation of the fact that you've helped them with that journey. So
Mhm.
I think the main thing for leadership is allowing others to continue to grow. And as a performance coach, I have this very strange job, and one of the strangest jobs in the world, I think. My job is to coach myself out of a job, so that in the end, if it's an athlete, they don't actually need me because I've provided such good information, let's say over a period of time,
Mhm.
that they understand nutrition, they understand the S&C program, they understand how to play a lefty, how to play a righty, they understand how to play on clay, they understand how to play on hard. They have all this knowledge that we've helped them grow. So then you're there then in the end watching this you've watched this thing grow over a 4, 5, 6 year period, and you're now yourself unemployed. So
Yeah, yeah,
but I think that for me is a great sort of way of understanding what our roles are in sport.
yeah,
That we're coaching ourselves out of a job,
yeah,
and the better job we do of that, actually, the more we actually go up the ladder. That's the reality, because
sure.
that's what sport is.
Yeah,
And I've tried to explain that to the coaches in such a way where it's not actually about them; it's about helping, like, getting them to understand that
yeah,
you're developing others in a way where they need you less and less. And so, top class athletes, top class coaches, top class leaders, their their role really is to make people more independent rather than dependent. And I think that's really a really key thing for a leader, to have staff that can work as a team, but independently, that your mind can go somewhere else because they're independent. They're not needy. They don't need you too much. They're just there as a bit of, you're there for a bit of support, because they're so good at what they're doing. I think that's the key.
love it. What a great way to finish, and so many golden nuggets there for people to take away with them. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. So for anyone listening who wants to get in touch with you and maybe ask some follow-up questions, what's the best way that they can do that?
I think the best thing to do is just to email me, really, and then
Okay,
and then we can go from there. Yeah.
brilliant.
Um,
Okay,
so I'm sure you can share that with people, Ryan.
we'll do. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes, and people can get in touch with me directly, and I'll pass on your contact details. But thanks again, John, and best of luck for 2025, and thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. No problem.
Thanks for listening to the episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. It would be really helpful if you please leave a rating and/or review on whatever platform you're listening on. Is there someone you know who would benefit from hearing what you've just heard? Then help them out by sending a link. Be sure to check out the website www.ryanblakeperformancecoaching.com that has details about free tools which include the RBPC blog, more information about this podcast, taking the Performance Profile Online Assessment, joining the Sports Leadership Online Community, the Elite Impact Online Education course, the Elite Potential Online Coaching Program, the Elite Influence in-person consultancy, and how to get in touch if you have any questions. Follow on social media at LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, Facebook and YouTube. Links to these can be found at the bottom of all website pages and via any search engine. Until next time, take care.